everyone, this is Sasha bringing you a video tutorial today from BP4U. And this is part 2 of the blend modes, so if you haven't yet watched part 1, then that's a great starting place. So we're going to move along into the contrast blend mode group. And so the very first contrast blend mode is overlay. And we can find overlay right here. Overlay blend mode, it's actually it is a blend of the lighten and the darken blend modes. And so the contrast blend modes are actually, the first one, overlay, is made up of darken and lighten. Soft light is made of multiply and screen. Hard light is made of color burn and color dodge. Vivid light is made of linear burn and linear dodge. And pen light is made of darker color and lighter color. And hard mix is kind of its own thing. And so the contrast blend modes all lighten the lightest pixel and they darken the darkest, and they kind of drop their midtones. And they use that combination of the blend modes to create the contrast effect. And so here you can see that we are using the overlay blend mode, and so if we go too high up with our white, then you can see it sort of blows out our midtones a little bit, but if we go too far down to the black, then our picture's too dark. So it's good to find that middle ground with this blend mode. I'm trying to find one that I really like. I think something right in here, and you can use this tool too if you're picking a color. You can use this color picker tool to kind of click around your picture as well to find a color that you want to use. I think I'm going to go back in here and pick something kind of mucky like that, but I like that effect. You can also use overlay on my duplicated background layer to add quite a bit of contrast and pop to your image as well. And I could pull my opacity of that down, and I could get a really nice effect from using that. And I really love this effect. And so I'm just going to pull that back up, and we'll make that normal again. The next one is soft light, and this is definitely my favorite blend mode out of all of the blend modes that are around. And so again, I'm going to turn this off because I usually use it on a duplicated background layer. And that is my favorite way to use it. And again, I get that nice contrast here in my photograph. I can also use this blend mode on a color fill layer, and I also love the effect that I get from this. And so anytime that I'm doing that, I drop a fill layer over top of my picture, I almost always use the soft light blend mode, and I almost always drop the opacity with that, and then I love that effect that I get from doing that. And so that's my style. Yours might look a little bit different, but that's also a great way that you can use that. So the next blend mode is hard light, and it's kind of similar to overlay, but it's a little bit more intense. And so there you can see the hard light, and again you would want to most likely lower the opacity if you were going to just use that like that. And you can see as we click around here, kind of the gray areas, you're going to get less of an effect than if we pull off into some major color areas. So something maybe a little warmer than that. Something maybe a little bit like that. I would probably really like to use on my pictures, and you can see that that adds enough of an effect that it looks really, it just gives a little pop to your pictures. The next one that we have is vivid light. And vivid light is kind of similar here to the hard mix in a way. So here we have this, it's not similar to the hard mix. It's kind of similar to the hard light, excuse me. Vivid light is similar to hard light, but it's a little bit different. You can see here that we have this nice effect. We can get more intense colors from using this effect though. Instead of that kind of overlay appeal, we can get some really saturated colors out of this. And again, when I kind of pull into the gray, I sort of get a little bit less of my effect. And when I start pulling out here, you can see that I can get some really crazy effects. So the middle gray here is the kind of color here that you're not going to get a lot of effect from. And that's just because of the contrast. If you remember in the lighten group, when you pulled close to the white, you didn't get a lot of effect. And in the darken group, when you pull closer to the black, then you didn't get a lot of the effect. So it makes sense that if we're smushing the lighten and the darken groups together to create this contrast group, that in the middle gray here, you're not going to get much of an effect from using this color blend mode here. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. So here I would probably use something like that. I love that effect. Not only does it add some contrast, but I got a little bit of warmth out of that as well. Next we have linear light. And the linear light is kind of similar to the vivid light, but it's a little bit darker. And so here you can see, oops, as we kind of click around a little bit, if we pull up closer to the white, of course we're going to get the blown highlights, and the black we're going to get that darkening effect. But you can see as we kind of pull through here that it's a very extreme effect. And again, as we get closer to that middle gray, you're going to have less of that effect. And so something right in there I really like. And again, I could lower my opacity on that if I so chose to do so. The next blend mode is pen light. And the pen light looks a little something like this. And so with this pen light, as we click around in our colors, the results of the pen light tend to be kind of blotchy with no midtones. And so you can get some interesting looks from using the pen light, to say the least. It's definitely one of those ones that I would probably lower my opacity to, and I might not use real strong, just to maybe get a little bit of a, again, right down in here, I can see that it has that sort of matte looking effect to it. And so I could use it for something like that, or you could get really creative and do something really fun. The next one is hard mix. Now hard mix looks different than all of the rest of these because hard mix consists of 8 colors total: red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and white. There are no other colors that exist within this hard mix. And so as we come around and we click around here in this hard mix a little bit, you kind of get this cartoon effect from this blend mode. And you can see here that you're going to get the most detail right in here in this kind of middle gray area, because as we start going out, then we start losing a lot. And so right here, I'm getting the most detail. I can see the eyes and I can see the facial features. And so that could be definitely an interesting look if that's what you're going for. But it works just a little bit differently than the other blend modes do. So moving along down, the next group of blend modes that we have are the inversion blend modes. And so the first one that we have here is difference. And difference the similar colors will cancel each other out and the results will be black. So if I were to use difference on this, I would definitely have a black photo because these two things right here definitely make up similar colors. So let's put that back on normal. And we'll turn this layer back on. Because this is in the inversion blend mode group, it does kind of give an inverted color scheme to your photographs, and you can see here that you can get some kind of interesting, almost spooky like looks, but the closer that we get to the black, the less of that you'll see. And so if we stay close to the darker areas, then you can get different effects from that as well. So you can see down here we've got some interesting looks with our shadows, and as we kind of pull up and around through here, we can again create some very unique looking effects. So you can see there how that has affected our photo. An exclusion is similar to the difference. When it comes to, if I were to apply this to my background copy, my photo would be inverted. You can see here. Again, let's put that back on normal. And so we have here this exclusion, and as we pull up through here, again, we get that inverted effect from using it. And again, the closer to the black that you get, the less of that effect that you're going to see. The next group that we have is our component group. And so the first blend mode that we have here is hue. Now hue is unique because it's going to turn everything in the photo into a hue of the color that you have selected. And so as we go through here, everything's going to be a hue of this green in here. If I were to do blue, everything's going to be a hue of this blue in here. And so all of this is a hue of one of each other. And so it's going to show all of these colors in our photograph. Again, within here, as you see, as I click around in here, you notice that there's not really much of a change, and that's because everything is already a hue of all of this. And so to get a difference in our photo, then we could scroll up and down through here, but clicking around in here isn't going to do much as far as changing because everything is already a hue of this. Okay, so the next one that we have is saturation. And the saturation kind of makes everything more or less saturated. So the closer up to, the further out into these colors that you get, the more saturated the look that you're going to get. And then the closer to the white and black, the more desaturated look that you're going to have. So you can see when I click on black or white, I get a completely desaturated photo. And then as I move along through here, I get more and more saturation until it starts to look just absolutely crazy. The next one that we have is the color blend mode. Now this one is similar to hue, but it's different because everything is just going to be this color. It just drops this color over top of the photograph, and it uses that color to make everything it's kind of flat, whereas the hue has a lot more dimension to it. The last one that we have is luminosity, and this one is just it does its own thing here. It kind of keeps the colors from this layer, but it kind of keeps the shape and like the brightness from this one. And so as I kind of click around through here, you can see how the different color kind of affects it differently. This is one of those ones that you would use to get really creative with. Maybe you could turn it down, lower the opacity, and kind of get a look to it where it sort of evens out the colors here, like if you notice on her face. As I turn it off and on, it sort of brings the colors together. and the tones, and it kind of creates a look where it is just more evenly spread the light is, while still giving it a little bit of a color tone. I really like this purple color on that. And so you can see how it kind of evens out the highlights and the shadows for a more even effect. So that is blend modes, and those are some ways that you can use blend modes in your editing, and they can be extremely helpful and a very valuable tool in order to take your editing and your processing up to the next level. So thank you for watching this video tutorial. Happy editing!